Hello and welcome to the DPC show. My name is Dan Offen, aka Mr. Big Jams. In this show, we keep you on top of all of the action across all 6 of the DPC regions, but because this week only China is running, this is a special China edition of the show. Because it's just one market, I decided to invite a special guest on, so we've been joined by Bkop as well as Kips, who both are going to be taking us through the China region in slightly more depth this week. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, I can be found at Daniel Offen, and that's spelled Daniel, then O-F-F-E-N. And if you'd like to financially support me for creating this show, you can find a link to my Patreon in the episode description. And the show is going to be kicking off right now. Okay, I'm joined by Bkop and Kips, and we're going to be talking through the goings-on in this week in China DPC. So, guys, let's start with you, Kips, first. What was, I suppose, your highlight of this week in China?
I mean, my highlight of the week personally was the lower bracket matchup versus, or lower division. I keep saying bracket. It's been months, and I think everybody still says bracket. Anyway, the lower division matchup between Phoenix and CDEC, which was very important for both teams' standings because both of them were on 4-1, I believe. And this was probably a decider for which one of the two could get into the top 2. And unfortunately, Phoenix had their hopes dashed, but not after a very interesting best of 3. So I'll be wanting to bring that one up later for sure.
Okay, and Bkop, how about you? Any particular highlights from your week of casting?
Yeah, Vici 2-0ing Elephant. I thought Elephant were finally making the turnaround. I thought things were getting better, and they. I guess I was surprised because Ori hasn't been performing too well. He's been on and off. You usually see him kind of lead the team, but that surprised me that Elephant just had nothing to go up against Vici, and by the looks of it, they might be the 4th team in that region. So I'm kind of like on the edge on whether I want to continue to be like a big Elephant guy over here.
Let's go into that series then in more depth, because we've got Elephant currently in 4th position and Vici in joint 2nd, kind of a 3rd if you look at current standings. Have you been impressed by Elephant at all across this whole series, either of you?
On and off, I would say. They've had a good series against LGD, but they had eHome and LBZS. Those should be easy wins, and then their losses have been pretty one-sided. It's just not the team that everybody's expecting, especially coming off the fact that they looked good when they first started out, and now they just look like they're lost. I mean, Somnus is losing matchups that he should win. TA against an SF, and he's getting blown out of the water by Ori, which is, I'm not trying to say Ori's not a good player, but when you have a matchup like that and you're getting blown out, like, this is not the Somnus I was hoping for.
2 solo deaths. I really do want to stress that, because you're not supposed to die as a TA versus an SF, much less solo, much less twice. It was just raises and good damage calculation from Ori, and Somnus really felt weak that game, but that series as a whole as well. And my opinion on Elephant is that even when their players individually or sometimes even together look good, I think their drafts have overall been very weak. Like this match, especially this week, was just 2 draft losses in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. But from what you just described, sorry to interrupt you, Bkop, there, but what you described, that sounds like a mid lane loss, that Ori simply crushed the mid lane and then rolled on from there, or is the draft a better facilitator of that?
I think that it's more than just the mid lane losing. Like, it feels like they're just playing overall like this. There's nobody who's sacrificing themselves. It's all greed. Like, Yang's playing super greedy. I mean, FY, he's played on teams where he's had to be the playmaker, the showstopper, and he still maybe feels like he's in that role, and he's trying to do so much that he's not doing anything at all, really. And then, Red Panda's just kind of there. I don't know. I mean, I love Red Panda, don't get me wrong, but he feels like he's just kind of like there at times where it's like, oh, he's playing Abaddon, he's dead. All right, cool. Red Panda, next guy, next interaction here. And it's surprising. And I think the team just overall has felt like so out of sync. I don't know what they are expecting when everybody wants to be super greedy.
Exactly that. Like, they have the traditional super team problem, I think, which is they're all really very good. They're all used to being the guy that makes the difference. And it's a bit like when everybody's a super, nobody is.
Yeah.
They don't know how to hand the responsibility to somebody else. And I think having a strong coach could help them with both that as well as the draft issues, and it just lacking that right now on their team. I think the whole situation with ROTK a long time ago is kind of coming back to bite them.
Yeah, for sure. ROTK on that team would be a difference maker, but I don't know if it's going to be enough of a difference maker because, as an example, you see eHome, who went from Yao to QQQ. QQQ is a genius. The 4 games he's been coaching eHome in the DPC, he's outdrafted the other team so well, and they've lost every game. And it's he's put them in such a good spot to win, and they're not doing it.
I don't want to be mean though, but can you really outdraft your way out of having a carry player that's not a carry player?
Yeah, I'd say yeah.
Let's go into those eHome games then. That's a perfect segue into eHome losing 2-0 to PSG. A carry player that's not a carry player. Is that, again, what happened there? A failure of Adjit and XM, or is it something deeper for eHome?
I don't know what his build was on that Broodmother in that first game. It really baffled me. I really wonder where they'd be at if SCCC was still on the team. I love him mid more than safe lane anyway. I'd like to see him obviously be involved in the season next season, but I don't know. This team isn't meshing. Like, they're expecting their carry to do something, and it's a little bit of what we saw in Southeast Asia with like Drew and a couple other carries out there. Jackie, who they can lead farm, they just don't know what to do with it, and they get lost or they run around. Like, there was like a game where Drew was top of the net worth by like 2k gold, and he's just shape-shifting and running around like a dog who's got the zoomies and not doing anything. I don't know. Ajit is not the answer. I don't know who is. Maybe SCCC would come back. I don't think he's coming back. I think that team is actually going to make a couple of changes.
Mm-hmm. Kips, let's go briefly into PSG then. We've spoken about them quite a lot in this series as a team who's underperformed but occasionally looked slightly brighter. Is this a brighter look from them, or is it perhaps just competing against weaker opposition?
I mean, it feels rough to say that it's competing against weaker opposition, right? But I'm kind of inclined to agree with you there. The way that they got both of these wins was shaky at the best. They make some misplays. Their drafts don't look exactly great either. I guess this time around, though, nothing to say really is still a bright point for this team for me. He has been performing really well, and these 2 games as well, just 2 utterly magnificent puck games, I'd want to say.
Is that something you agree with, Bkop, that nothing to say is a bright spot for them?
Yeah, when he was competing with XM for #1 spot, I thought in rankings, I thought that he was going to be a really good mid, and he's definitely shown and proven that. I think LGD, I'd rather them at the major in a wildcard spot than Elephant. I just have more confidence in their victories so far. Every single one of LGD's losses have been a 2-1, where they've just fallen short or had games that just aren't Dota anymore, where it becomes chaos and you're 60 minutes in and 8 Divine Rapiers are on the floor and you just happen to lose that one. Like, it's those little things. Like, that game alone is a difference maker on whether or not they make it to the major. Is that absolute barn burner with Aster. Like, that was just disgusting.
This is nothing to say his first time playing properly in China. He started kind of mid last year. When you have in your experience, Bkop, as someone who's watched this region for a long time, when you have a Malaysian player who comes into a Chinese team, is it normal to expect a transitionary period, or for them to grow slowly into the role, or is this in line with what we usually see?
I think he's been around in the Chinese region since eHome, so he's had some time to kind of fit with the region, and I think he's certainly proven that he should be there. I'm thinking he's still growing. I really think we're going to see more from him, which I'm excited about. I don't know if LGD going forward, again, I think it's another one of those rosters that if they miss the major, they might make some shifts. Like, if nothing to say becomes a free agent, all of a sudden SCCC's on LGD, I wouldn't be shocked. But nothing to say would be a huge free agent for anybody to pick up. And I think just moving from team to team has been a pretty good experience for him.
Yeah, I definitely have an opinion here as well, because I've, of course, coached 2 players that are actually Malaysians that went to China, which is Mushi and Ohio. And what I have seen from SEA players is that kind of unbridled joy that they have for the game and like that impulsiveness. In China, they can really hone the skills that you get from that to a fine point and get a player who's both creative as well as technically capable. And I've honestly thought that, the Malaysian player going to China is a great scenario in terms of player progress. And I have never seen a player get worse from that ever. So I'm really in favor of Malaysian and Chinese players making that transition, and I am very excited about what he's going to grow into.
Great. Let's move on then to, I suppose, the biggest fairy tale story of this DPC season, which is IG, who I think unsurprisingly 2-0'd LBZS, who are sitting dead last with 0 wins across the entire of the DPC. Is there anything we can learn from that series, Bkop, or is it again just a very good team beating a slightly weaker team?
I think we're just still learning that IG are giving it their all, no matter who they're up against, and they're here to stay. They a year ago were winning minors, going to the major. That's where they ended themselves going into the break, was a chance at ESL1 LA. They were going to go to that, and then I believe that fell apart. But IG has just looked really good, and this is a roster that I'm not surprised. I know everybody in chat is going to continue to say, why don't you look up IG against Execration? Yes, I understand they lost that series, but there were stand-ins and there was things going on that, they were moving people to different positions, and it was a whole mess. But, they're allowed to have a slump, especially in online play like that. And now when it matters, they're back to form, and they're still the team that I thought they were. I didn't think they'd be in first. I'm not going to be like, I thought they were going to be the first place team. I still thought that was Elephant, but I definitely thought IG was a major contender for sure.
You were talking to me this week and last week as well, Kips, about stuff that you'd noticed from IG that made them helped explain this, not a sudden rise, but continued good form from them. Was that continued this week?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially their mastery of how the farm is distributed on the map. You can see that illustrated in the fact that they won with the Alchemist, and then in second game beat the Alchemist, both of them very convincingly. And I think that even when the game is pretty one-sided like that, you can still see that they understand what it takes in order to close those games out in a way where they're never ever at risk of losing it at all.
Great. Well, let's go into their partners for next week who they're playing up against, which is Team Aster, who 2-0'd Team Magma, i.e. the second worst team in the DPC. Is there much we can learn from that? Because Aster, I think, are a bigger surprise than IG were, because many people probably who watched Dota a year ago would have seen IG as a larger contender. I don't think many people would have seen Aster as the contender they've been. Is there anything we learned from them this week?
I think overall we've just continued to learn that White Album's legit. I don't know if there was a lot of faith in him coming out of SAG, but he, it's similar to Red Panda, where I don't know, everybody just thought God King was the only guy to come out of SAG to be legit, and he, formerly known as DD, now here is White Album. He's doing great. Red Panda, I think he's found himself in maybe a spot that's not working for him, but if moving around, he could be a little bit better. But White Album is so good, and he is the shining star on this team. What I've learned is that he can carry games, and they are meshing so well. Lanham, the change from Chizbug to Lanham was massive. He's the leader here, and everybody's following him in line to a victory every single time, basically.
So to go through what he played Dragon Knight and Puck across these two games. Anything notable in either of those?
His Puck is maybe the top in the region right now, and that's with a couple Puck players really showing it at the moment. But he is just, I don't think he's had really that bad of a game at all. I haven't seen them really struggle too much except against Vici, but I don't know. I like him. I think he's really making a shot at being one of those like namesakes, if he keeps his name the same, of course.
It's a great name.
So we'll see. Yeah, I actually love it.
Kips, I know you're going to want to talk about Borak/Bkop, as you always do.
How did you know?
What's on Borak's watch this week?
Two times IO, which is, I was literally going to bring that up just now because I was like, hey, this man has been bringing the support Monkey King back. He's been absolutely loving the Orb of Corruption for anything and everything that he plays because he likes these playmaking mobile melee heroes, right? But he's been on IO twice, and it's really a more serving role. And it's good to see that not only can his team say, hey, you're going to play this now, but that he does just as fine of a job with that as with any other support hero. And I think it just shows that it doesn't always have to be about him, and it's a sign of a maturity in a player. So, thumbs up from me.
Are you a Borax fan, Bkop?
Oh, huge, actually. I talk about DAC too much during the cast when I get to cover them because DAC is just, especially with what went on, he just does so much. Like, DAC was just one of those events that you don't forget. I think the big thing to take away from that series actually was Lanham. He was perfect. He played that Knicks game. If you want to watch a perfect Knicks game, go watch that first game because that was some of the most disgusting Lanham play I have ever seen in my life. He was hitting 3-man stuns every single time. He was a bug tide hunter, and it was beautiful. I loved it.
It's great to see because Lanham is one of the oldest players in the DPC at 31. He's turning back the years. I remember him on Team DK. He was an incredible player, and it's great to see him still hit those levels these days as well. I wanted to go into the match that we can see next week, which is closing up, which is between those two teams we just mentioned, Aster and IG, which will be the battle for first place in the region. What do you guys expect that we can see to come out from those games?
For me, I think I honestly want to give Aster the leg up. I know they're 5-1 and IG are 6-0, but I'm also one of those guys who's a masochist and just wants to cast more. So I'm hoping, everybody ties and we get to go into big tiebreakers. Because if Vici beat LGD are out of the major, but Vici end up like 6-1, and then if Aster beat IG, they're all 6-1, and I'd like that carnival to never stop. So as many games as I can see is where I want to see it at.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for my part, I do actually also favor Aster a slight bit because, as I've said before, all of these victories that IG have had haven't looked exactly flawless. Like their decisions for going into team fights look a bit wonky sometimes. There's some things weird with their rotations after the laning stage, that sort of thing. So, if anybody has like really clear weak spots here, it's IG. But then again, like I've stated this last week as well, but their mastery of the map and of out farming might just mean that even if you manage to poke a couple of holes in their play, IG could always still come back. And I'm convinced it's going to be a barn burner. I am very, very, very hyped for this game.
Especially it's the last series. Just ban Batrider, please. I don't need to see that again. That was against LGD. That was the craziest thing I think I've seen in so long. That Batrider Abaddon combo where Ollie's just like, no, come kill me, please. And then he's just getting lassoed, and it's a 20-second cooldown where you got the double lasso on people. That was too much.
You missed something in that LBZS game.
It was so great.
Let's go into the lower division then to close up. Kips, I know there's something you wanted to talk about there. Let's talk through your lower division highlights for this week.
Yeah, so honestly, most of the series were pretty much, and I've had a bit of this problem as well, that I don't think these teams are very evenly matched. And it looks like they have saved the best for last because LBZS versus CDEC right now was pretty incredible, all things considered. And I guess that third game with indeed a Batrider with Shard and Aghanims was the highlight. Especially a moment where I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but apparently, and I was shocked when this happened, you can also lasso couriers. Right. So what they did was micro a courier up the high ground to give vision, position the courier next to somebody, and then have the Batrider jump in and lasso the courier with enemy in tow and drag it back off. It was wild.
Yeah, if you pull that off in your 2K games, anybody who can pull that off, you're going to be on Overwatch all the time. Let me tell you, hacking and scripting with a courier getting the lasso, that was, I don't know, that combo was really disgusting. I wanted Phoenix to win that series, but CDC ended up pulling it out, and that combo is mainly the reason why. A disgusting little 1-2 punch.
So where does that leave us in the lower division? We've got Sparkling Arrow Gaming topping things up on 5-1, and CDEC on 5-1, and also Royal Never Give Up on 5-1. What can we expect to see next week to turn this into our final table?
Well, the real last match here again is RNG versus CDEC, which is they've saved the best for last. This is going to decide what exactly that top looks like, and presumably we are going to have a tiebreaker for the second spot for that, if I'm not mistaken. It depends on Phoenix again. I mean, I'm personally rooting for Phoenix to beat SAG, but if Phoenix don't do that, then I'm afraid we don't get the tiebreaker.
Okay, what do you expect to happen there, Bkop? Any predictions? For you?
Tiebreakers, but just looking at the schedule, Phoenix, I want them to beat SAG. That puts both of those teams at 5-2. And then if RNG beats CDC, you got a 3-team tiebreaker, which would be the best thing to watch. And I think it gives Phoenix a chance, who I really want to see go to the upper bracket. Now that they've switched from Mercury to Yi, former mid for King Gaming, he's just one of those guys that I was like shocked didn't make it to a team. And Phoenix Gaming, they've really come a long way. Like that's why I want to see them go up as well, because they played in Perfect World League. They had in the first season they were getting coached by ROTK. That was right after the incident with Elephant. That didn't show up in any like he was like on a webcam during Perfect World League. I'm like, is that ROTK? And then I messaged Autumn Wins, and he was like, yeah, that's him. And I'm like, oh, perfect. This is like really good experience for them, and I'm hoping they take that and like get a win here and have a chance to make it to the upper division, because I think they'd be a good test for some of these teams, like especially like the eHomes and maybe even like LGD. When you've got a guy like Yi who's got a lot of experience, not only playing in the upper division, but is a solid mid, I think he can do a little bit better than what we're seeing like LBZS and Magma do.
Great. Let's close up then just by talking to you, I guess, about your kind of expectations and what's been met this season of the DPC Bkop. It's the first time we've had you on this, and I know you're obviously a big China guy. How's it been the first season of the DPC for you? Has it been along the lines of what you expected? Have there been big surprises, big jump outs for you?
I think the big surprise is just the weakness from Elephant and LGD. I wasn't expecting those two teams, especially watching LGD when they made the swaps and then they were playing in Dota Pit looking perfect almost. Them, Elephant, Vici were the three teams that I thought were just gonna throw everybody out of the boat and be like, well, we're here to stay. And they just Vici had a slower start. They're only 5-1. That's not really that bad. I just haven't seen their perfect gameplay from what I saw from them in Dota Pit, but I've been excited. A lot of these series have come down to the wire between these top teams, and it just, again, it shows that this region, as much as people don't like it, deserves 4 slots. Even with their 4th team skating in, it's teams that are just so much depth and really do have what it takes to potentially go from wild cards to playoffs to victory. I really think any one of these teams that makes it can go from that like really long shot wild card to a final.
Well, a real blockbuster final week to look forward to in the China DPC. But until then, thanks so much for joining me this week, Bkop and Kips, as ever, and I'll see you guys soon. Thank you to Kips and Bkop for taking us through China. Much appreciated to Bkop for coming on. He was great, and I interviewed him on Position 6 a couple of weeks ago. So if you've not listened to that yet, go back and check it out. In terms of Position 6 upcoming things, I've got an interview, I think, with Adam343 Dota coming up this Thursday, and then after that we're looking at 23 Savage, I believe. Which is very exciting. So stay tuned to that. You can get updates on all of my podcast output on Twitter by following me on there, which is at Daniel Offen. That's Daniel the O-W-F-E-N. And again, if you'd like to financially support me for creating this show, you can find a link to my Patreon in the episode description. But we'll head off now, and I'll see you next week when I'll be returning with another week of the DPC show with another special guest.